I ventured out this year. I left my job as the chief product officer at Dribbble to start a brand new company. And that company is gigantic. My goal is to help you master the new influential disciplines that are driving results within organizations, like product leadership taught by Ben Foster, the former CPO at Whoop. It's not just video courses. We're combining video lectures with take-home assignments and exercises, and then small group mentorship to really help level you up, and all at a cost that most companies' learning and development budget covers. So if you're interested, go to gigantic.is, that's gigantic.is, sign up for a course, and I'll walk you through everything that you need to know. And if you enroll and let me know that you heard about this on Rocketship, I've got a special discount for you.
Welcome to the Rocketship podcast. This is Michael Sacco. So today on the podcast, I talked to Chris Shepard. He is the founder of HashRabbit. The night before I met Chris, and we were talking about Bitcoin, and I could tell how passionate he was for this. And the more I dug in, the more I realized he was really preparing for the 10-year plan of Bitcoin. That kind of futuristic vision for a market that is so young was really inspiring, so I had to have him on the podcast.
We'd like to take a moment to thank our awesome sponsors. CodeShip makes continuous delivery simple and easy. Go to codeship.com/rocketship to get 20% off 3 months.
We'd also like to thank InVision app. InVision is by far the best prototyping and collaboration tool on the market. Go to InVision app/Rocketship to get the starter plan free for 90 days.
Customer.io is a modern email platform built for startups. Go to customer.io/Rocketship to start sending emails that convert.
So what we're doing is we're building software, the software layer for Bitcoin miners. So essentially what that means is we're the Android, and the actual hardware that actually is the thing that mines the Bitcoins. Yeah. We're the software layer that goes on that secures it and also allows more applications to be built on top of it as Bitcoin grows and scales.
So how did you find out about this problem, that people needed this software?
Yeah, so about 7 or 8 months ago, I was complaining to my co-founder, who was also my roommate, that my mining rate kept going down, and that it was all open source stuff that I was using, and he was like, this is the most garbage code I've ever seen. Like, this is not scalable, it's not modular, like, data centers would not use this. So he was just kind of like, oh, I wish I could make something better for this. I know I can make something better than this. And at the time, it was just kind of like, okay, cool, but I don't have time for that. How do I fix this now? I'm losing money. Like, you're not going to build it fast enough. And so a few months after that, I basically was trying to scale the operation. So even though I was having all this trouble and stuff, finally when I got the hang of it, I was like, okay, I'm going to host a bunch of these mining rigs. I'm just going to be able to scale this out and everything. And then I realized that how do you can't automate this, the software that's on it, you can't build on top of it because it's garbage code. So my co-founder basically told me that Gabe, he told me no, it's not going to happen. And so essentially we just kind of scrapped everything else. I kind of figured out how we could make money off of this, and so I pitched it to him, and I was like, you want in? And he was just like, yeah, let's do it. And so we basically, it's kind of the March, I think, beginning of March is when we were okay, full time, both of us stop doing contract work and just commit to it. Yeah, nice. I made a little bit of money off of Litecoin when it went up to 40. Yeah, okay, and because I bought it at $2 and stuff, so I made a little bit of money. So I told him to stop taking contract work and I'd pay him. I'd make sure he's okay, and he was like, okay, that works. So what did you pay him? What I did was I would just pay him in cash. Okay. So it was. You can do whatever you want. Yeah, I just sold the Litecoin and then I paid him in cash, and he can do whatever he wants with it. But nice. Yeah. So for those that aren't that familiar, these the kind of junk code that you're talking about, where were you finding this, and did you guys replace that, or did you build something to make that more stable? So the software it's called CG Miner. That software was made like a couple years ago, and because mining really started with your processor. You could mine with your processor, and then it went to graphics cards, and then it started going to FPGAs, and then ASICs, which are application-specific integrated circuits. So specific chips, the only thing they do is mine Bitcoin, nothing else. So, that software was built over time and just kept getting tweaked by different developers and stuff like that. So there's just a lot of people were touching it throughout the years. And so it made it really hard for people to break away from that and to just build something better. And so the big issue what we saw was just that everybody was using a different Linux distro. Everybody was using a different version of CG Miner. So if they were mining Bitcoin or they were mining Litecoin or mining Dogecoin, like they all had maybe not Dogecoin, but like there's other currencies. Yeah. So they're just getting tweaked this little bit. Some people are making like they're essentially just forking it, which is copying the code and then just changing a couple things and then resubmitting it and be like, hey, use mine instead. So there's just a bunch of these guys just with all these different kinds of things. So it was just very non-standardized and it was just
So did you guys rewrite CG Miner then?
So because CG Miner has so much behind it, and every single mining rig runs a version of CG Miner right now. So it's really hard to pull CG Miner out right now. So what we do, CG Miner has an API that you can talk to, but the API was not meant for like web applications. It was not meant for being able to build tools with it. It was just meant to maybe pull a little bit of data and make a native app and stuff like that.
So is that like the reporting that you get back to
some of the
terminal?
logs, being able to change the pools. Like if you wanted to make a GUI interface, like instead of just the terminal interface that you would normally see. Yeah. So CG Miner is pretty clunky. It's not useful. So my co-founder, being the the dude he is, he basically was just like, okay, I'm going to take this garbage code, and no matter what it pushes out, I'm going to organize it. I'm going to make sure it's clean, and then we can interact with it with this API that I just made, like a REST API that's simple and every developer knows how to use. Nice. Because it doesn't have to be C, because CG Miner is made out of C and a whole bunch of other stuff. So we kind of left CG Miner alone because there's so many different versions of it, and we just built. We just started building on top of it. Yeah. And then that was just one piece of it, and it's completely different when it comes to actually the operating system, which version of Linux you're using, some people are using Windows, some people are so that became very inconsistent and stuff, and so people were using Raspberry Pis, like with the ARM
I could see that.
chips and stuff. Yeah. But Raspberry Pis are not meant to scale. Those are little toys, they're not meant to do those things, and so ASIC manufacturers were starting to use them, and all this stuff. But I think they soon realized that does not scale properly in a data center type setting, and so those guys are moving away from Intel processors, and they're moving away from a lot of those things, and they're trying to make their own custom controller boards that can actually do all of this themselves. Okay. So you
guys need to be flexible enough in all of these situations to be able to manage whatever server that this person has installed.
Right. So that was originally what we were like, we'll just adapt to it. Okay. But it didn't end up like that. So we built all these tools, and then when we started trying to integrate people into it, then that's when the real issues started coming, where it was just like, hey, my firmware is not up to date, and they're still vulnerable to Heartbleed, and still vulnerable to all these security issues. And it's like every manufacturer is like this. They're all built differently, and there's no standard way of doing things. And so we would have to adapt to each individual mining company in order to put our software on it and stuff. And if they were just one version behind, their firmware was one version behind, we can't help them. If they got hacked, they might blame us. So there's all these really risky things. And when you're in Bitcoin, you have one chance. If you screw it up and everybody hates you, good luck trying to make your reputation good again. Yeah. So I was like,
So you guys are part of the Boost VC incubator, right?
Yeah.
Or an accelerator.
Yeah, it's like an accelerator.
Program.
Yeah. Thing.
What kind of reception have they gotten to like the actual business of Bitcoin? Mm-hmm. What are some of the concerns that are coming up? You guys are there with a bunch of Bitcoin companies. Mm-hmm. What are some of the general concerns or not concerns that you guys have found around the business of Bitcoin?
I mean, just to address the concern stuff is like, I would say there's people who believe in Bitcoin and then there's people who don't believe in Bitcoin or are not convinced yet. And Boost VC, the reason why we went with them is because they funded the most Bitcoin startups. They know that it's going. I mean, Tim Draper has stated like just recently, I think twice in the last like week, that in 3 years Bitcoin is being $10,000 each, and that, I mean, that's a really bold statement. But it's like it's not the U.S. that's going to drive this. So because everybody's been asking me about why $10,000, like so if viewers or listeners are curious. It's a lot of out of country stuff, okay. But Boost VC, they get it, and it's a lot harder as a Bitcoin company to pitch an investor Bitcoin and try to convince them just on the concept of Bitcoin, and then just trying to convince them about what you do. And we're on the mining side, so we're doing transaction processing. That's what mining is the thing that secures Bitcoin.
Right.
And so the reason why Bitcoin is so amazing and awesome is because there's this proof of work that you have to verify. And so convincing an investor just on Bitcoin and then having to convince them that the back-end system is so important is just even harder. So I've really tried to avoid a lot of those, and I feel like luckily for us is that since 2013, since the rise of the price and everything, it's been a lot easier to talk to an investor and explain, but like to convince them. But like Brian Armstrong from Coinbase, like from the stories I hear, like he had a lot of trouble trying to raise money in 2012 and stuff. And so it's I think it's a different playing field now. But definitely, I try not to waste my time with people who are not. You have to
need to get it first.
Yeah.
And then we can talk the business.
Right.
Okay.
In 2011, I got approached when Bitcoin was $8 and stuff, and I wasn't convinced, and I shrugged it off, and I didn't care. But it took 2 years before, I was like, whoa, there's something here. I gotta look into this more. And so I think it takes some time to really get convinced about Bitcoin. It's not something that just like, Bitcoin, there it is, like, here we go, like, this is the next big thing, and it's not like that. And so
are people focused on the value of Bitcoin? Like, if you have a Bitcoin business and Bitcoin goes up to $10,000 a coin, is that something that like investors are not concerned, but are looking as an advantage? Or are they interested literally for the business of your business, aside from what currency that you're operating in?
Right. So what I've seen is that there's investors who, and this is where you again see the investors who they say they're committed to Bitcoin and they see the future of it, and then there's the ones that are just like, they're gung-ho. And so transactions, number of transactions is super important, but right now it's not as high as it could be. The price is just super volatile, and it's just like going up and down constantly. So it's really hard to measure where it's going to be in 3 years. It's hard to measure where it's going to be in a month. Yeah. And so
does that affect the value of your company?
That's a good question. I think that it might affect the value to the face value to some people. Okay. But again, those investors they understand that this is the next thing, and like the investors who understand that this is the next thing, they know that this is going to happen. Like the internet, when the internet was first being made, there was tons of vulnerabilities. There was people were not convinced of the internet. Like they were not like. They were like, what is this? Why would I use this? Why would I, I can use a telephone. And so there's a lot of, there's going to be a lot of those skeptics and why would I use this? Who would use this? And, so all these reasons and stuff. So I feel like if you just believe that this is why I got so interested in the infrastructure of Bitcoin. And because that's the only reason Bitcoin is going to continue to scale and become, because you can't advance merchant adoption, you can't advance consumer adoption and all these things without having easy to use, understandable tools. Like when the internet was that easy, where all I had to do was sign up for AOL, and then it just did a cool dial-up, and then all I have to do is just hit, you got mail, or like I can pick games and stuff. When it's just that dead simple, that's when I think Bitcoin is going to really, really take off. But at the same time, I mean, the U.S. is so lucky. We have such a good infrastructure for our payments, banking, all of these different things that we take for granted, that there's a bunch of other countries that they don't have this kind of tech. Right. And so they're going to skip this whole tech change, and it's just going to adapt a lot better, and I think.
Okay. Faster adoption
in other countries specifically. And I mean, Africa, like we're looking in Argentina's, economy is like going up and down constantly. So it's a mess. Yeah. So it's like, how do you prevent that? I mean, when the government shutdown happened last year, like China kind of freaked out a bit, because it was like they're the ones who hold the most USD, and are like fiat currency is not based on gold anymore; it's based on your government. So so if you're not so they were freaking out, and so that's, part of the reason why the price drove up. But it was just like, why not invest in something that does not rely on the government? And so, it's very interesting, because I feel like there's all these different things that have to be built out and have to be supported and stuff in order for Bitcoin to even flourish just like the internet.
Currency, right? It's going to take some time. Mm-hmm. So are you guys concerned at all about regulations? Specifically government regulations here, overseas? Totally. Is that a big worry of yours?
For maybe for some of the other Bitcoin companies, it might be. Definitely, I am concerned about it, and I'm keeping up with it, so I know what's going on. But at the same time, it's regulation is good in a way.
Okay.
So there's bad things about regulation, I think, and then there's good things. The good things, I think, is you have a standard. There's a standard thing that everybody has to abide by, and it makes sure that everybody who invests, everybody who's involved, is a lot safer. Okay. You don't have a Mt. Gox situation where everybody loses their money because they don't know how to properly secure their money. My co-founder, he's a white hat, an ethical hacker, so he went through Mt. Gox's code during when that whole spiel happened, and they were having rounding errors and stuff in there. And
really?
Yeah, it's like little things like that is super critical, especially when you're messing with money.
Currency, yeah.
Yeah, you can't do that. And so regulation is super important because of it makes sure that everybody abides by these rules. But at the same time, I feel like Bitcoin companies have an opportunity right now. Why not, instead of trying to allow others to regulate us, why not just try to hold ourselves accountable and try to secure everything and do everything the best way possible? Yeah. So then we don't have these situations. But now you as a company are now a leader. You are now setting a standard, and so there's no reason now that an organization of some kind has to set that standard for you. It's like you're setting the standard for everybody else who joins in. So regulation is interesting, but also the other thing with mining is just such a new concept to people that they don't even know what to do with mining. They barely understand Bitcoin, so it's like when it comes down to the mining side, how do you even regulate that? And it's like, so that's really interesting, and I feel I want to be a big player in the mining sector, so I want to be involved in that, because if there is a regulation that's going to happen, I want to make sure that there's the best intentions are being put in. It's not just this mumbo jumbo that of what they think is better for the ecosystem. It's like you don't know the ecosystem, right. You're not in it. Yeah. So, but definitely, I think because Bitcoin is more open source and transparent because of it's not a company that's behind it.
Yeah.
it gives the opportunity to the people to really, if you really do want this to be not regulated and to be decentralized and to be valuable for everyone, then we need to take ownership ourselves and not rely on our government or rely on organizations to make these rules for us. Because if we do, then that's when more people will start making money off of us, and
we'll end up with what we have today.
Yeah,
right. No, that makes a lot of sense. I'd love to learn a little bit about your operation. It's your co-founder, and now you just brought on a designer, right? What are you paying? What's your currency?
So right now we're raising money for more with cash.
Okay.
But it definitely we do know a couple Bitcoin investors that did make some good money during the whole Bitcoin boom and stuff. So they have a lot. So we have some Bitcoin, and we're more using it as a tool to empower our employees, as well as for example, our designer, she basically didn't really understand Bitcoin in the beginning. She's been hearing me for the last year talk about Bitcoin, and she's thinking I'm crazy and stuff. But I mean, in a way, it's kind of good that she's completely on this. But I sent her $1 the first time, and I was just like, you see how easy that was? You have $1 of Bitcoin now. And she was actually this is really cool. This is interesting. And so she actually requested from me that she wanted to be paid some of her salary in Bitcoin. And this is not uncommon to other startups that I've met, that there are employees who are just I want some Bitcoin. And so we're trying to have a little tiny fund of Bitcoin, but as well as if we buy low and then the price goes up, the company does well as well, because now we have more of it. And so we're trying to keep, for us, we're not a merchant or anything, and so we're more into keeping it and being able to utilize it for different things, paying our employees, potentially. So just an example, something that I think a lot of companies should start doing is I was going to contract a German artist to work with us and stuff for animated video and all this stuff. But I mean, if I was going to send him money right now, it's probably going to cost me way more to send it to him, and it's going to take even longer to get. Yeah. So I asked him, I was like, hey, are you opposed to me just paying you in Bitcoin? And he's like, no, actually, I would actually want that. It took a little convincing of him, just to even be into Bitcoin. But when I asked him if I could pay him in Bitcoin, he's like, yeah, I'll take it. And so I don't know if he was going to keep it or not, or if he's going to convert it. But just him, the fact willing to accept it, it was more than enough. Where it's just kind of I can send this guy money and not have to pay extra. He gets it immediately, can start working, and it's this. Now this thing is flourishing. So it's so I feel there's a lot of benefits that you can start contracting more outside employees. You can start. So there's a lot of things I think we can do with Bitcoin, and that's why we're kind of holding.
Kind of have some, and you're paying the salaries in USD, kind of bonuses or extras in Bitcoin right now. Yeah. What happens if you raise money in Bitcoin? Do you pay tax on it? How does it get reported?
Dude, that is something I'm still trying to get. It's that's the only reason I've been really hesitant about taking money from Bitcoin investors, because I mean, if I take money from them and since it's on capital gains tax and stuff, then if it goes up to $1,000, if it goes to $10,000, then now I have to my employees have to pay that, I have to pay it. It's this crazy thing where so it's interesting. We're still trying to kind of figure out how everything's going to work. We're keeping track of everything. Yeah. So, but we haven't gotten to tax season again, where we're just kind of okay, how do we do this?
How do we stay clean, right? Because it's a business now. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So. What's one company in Boost that you are really excited about, that you want more people to know about? Or not even in Boost, maybe just in Bitcoin.
I mean, this is for Boost, but it's because this guy has been he's been amazing help for me, but he's also been just incredible. Zapchain, it's called Zapchain. Okay. Zapchain.com, but Matt. He basically built this website, got into Boost, kind of pivoted right when he got into Boost, built this whole website himself, and then has like almost 2,000 Bitcoin founders on there. He has Bitcoin investors, and it's just like, it's kind of like a Quora mixed with like a LinkedIn kind of mixed with a Reddit. And the reason why this is kind of really valuable, I think, is it's interesting because he's in Bitcoin, but he's not doing anything specifically with Bitcoin, but he is helping the ecosystem in whole. But right now, the only places to really get information about Bitcoin and keep updated and stuff is our Bitcoin on Reddit or Bitcoin Talk, and there's not very many other places that you can go to. And the problem with these places is that they're anonymous. They're also, they're not really like friendly to a lot of people. So older people who don't really go on Reddit and stuff, they're not. It's harder to get
the first Reddit experience that you
right. And people get trolled all the time on Reddit, and you might be asking just a genuine question, and then just people are just wrecking you, and it makes you discouraged. Why do you want to come back here?
Yeah.
And so what he did is he's holding everybody accountable, where he's just like, you have to sign in with your Facebook, you have to validate that you are who you are, and then if you answer a question that somebody has and other people in the community believe that your answer is the best one, they'll upvote it. And every time you get the upvote, you get like a little bit of influence. And you get this influence score built up where now you're actually a credible person because you've answered people's questions, you've done things, people are following you and stuff, people are obviously believe that you are somebody that they should be listening to.
Okay.
And so it validates this whole thing where now it takes away kind of a little bit of the anonymous kind of stuff, but now it allows people to just, and also like in the last couple of years, as Bitcoin keeps growing, more and more people keep asking the same exact questions. So this prevents it from actually having to ask the same questions, and it allows everybody to just kind of search through it and just be able to ask a question and just kind of be able to find the answer and be able to see multiple people's answers. Okay. So you're now not just seeing one person with a really good answer, you're seeing a bunch of people with their answers. And I feel like for a new person who's getting into Bitcoin, it's a real good way to learn and just get really familiar, and then eventually just start becoming someone valuable. And
to be able to participate. Yeah,
right.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So where can we keep up with you and HashRabbit online?
So HashRabbit.co, our Twitter handle, I'm still working on it, but it's @HashRabbit. So if you want to follow me or follow the company or whatever, we post a bunch of things about mining and other stuff. But yeah,
awesome.
And then if you just want to contact me directly, Chris@HashRabbit.co. So
awesome. Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Rocketship podcast. If you enjoyed it, we have tons of other awesome episodes on our website. Check them out, rocketship.fm.
And while you're there, make sure you sign up for our newsletter, where twice monthly we send out actionable advice for entrepreneurs and exclusive links to AMAs with our guests. That's rocketship.fm. Sign up today.
I don't remember. Dressed up alligator. How the hell we get here? Things I don't remember. There was dressed up alligator. There was come on the piano. Disco dancing neighbors who were born in mashed potatoes. Caught with our pants down, hiding in the doghouse. Figured out what we're good for. You're the sailor and I'm the port. Things I don't remember. We undressed for the tailor. Your skin was lightly salted. Opened up a can of loudmouth malted. High fives in your eyes. Push the gas and now I'm kissing your thighs. Looking for a purpose. How the hell did we get here? There were things I don't remember. There was messed up alligator. There were endless conversations. No one's mouths were really moving. All them dumpsters overflowing. All my melon foundation. I don't remember, things 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 I don't. That what I'm good for, making anything look better. How the hell could I blame her? Even then I was the same. There were jokes that never lands. Every hand was dipped in the sand. Things I don't remember. There was interest on the table. There are jokes that couldn't land. There were disco dancing neighbors. They were born in mashed potatoes. There was no tambo. There were things I don't remember. Dressed up alligator. How the hell did we get here? How the hell did we get here?
Hey, my name is Lovan Rumpf, and I've been working my ass off as a celebrity stylist by day and a podcast host by night. At the Low Life Podcast, it's all about keeping it real. We're talking fashion, beauty, to religion, sex, drugs, mental health. I mean, there's no topic off limits here, and vulnerability is mandatory. You can find my podcast, The Low Life, that's L-O, no W, everywhere and anywhere you listen to your podcasts. New episodes are out every Thursday. We'll see you then.
It's pretty eerie to know you're in a place that no human's ever been before.
This is Armchair Explorer, where the world's greatest adventurers tell their best stories from the road.
And 4 of us were swept down the side of the mountain, and then I knew there was no way out of this thing.
From the heart-pounding to the inspiring and the downright insane. Find Armchair Explorer, a part of APT Podcast Studios, wherever you get your podcasts.
Go and find what it is in the world that matches that wildness in yourself.